All right, welcome back, everybody. On this week's episode, D&D 2024, 8 Cantrips to Take or to Avoid by yours truly. All right, so what are the goals of a good cantrip? Most importantly, a good cantrip falls under these 3 branches. First, it provides a good, consistent damage for spellcasters to keep up with martial classes when they're not casting leveled spells. Very important, especially if the cantrip scales up at levels 5, 11, and 17 to keep up with those martial fighters. It provides great utility or support in and out of combat, such as the name Cantrips, or nice support for practically just free for the most part. And finally, is really useful in roleplay. This one is less important than the other two, but a good cantrip can work like mechanically in roleplay, as well as just the roleplay aspect of roleplay. I normally like to fall upon both of those as trying to succeed. Now, small caveat: we're only going to go over the 2024's spells here. From older books, such as Tashes and Xanathars, which is where you're going to find most of them, there's still some good cantrips like Booming Blade and Green Flame Blade. Amazing, but they're not going to be talked about here. So, old cantrips from 2014 version, which are classics, and they've made it all the way through here. They've had little changes, as you can see here. Or they've just been untouched. So great for damage, the best being Eldritch Blast. This is now totally locked to the Warlock class. There's other ways that you can get Warlock spells. Now you can no longer do that. So it's completely tied to being a Warlock. That is the only downside, so nothing about it has changed. Fantastic. Firebolt, for those who can't get Eldritch Blast, Firebolt is a good alternative. Again, a D10 of damage, fire damage, can't go wrong with that. Eldritch Blast, sorry, I forgot. It's a D10 force damage, and it is on multiple attacks, which can multiple times, or it can proc multiple effects, such as the Warlock's Repelling Blast and their Agonizing Blast, which deals your Charisma modifier on the damage. Very nice cantrip. The good ones are Toll the Dead. This one deals a D8, but if the creature is damaged, it'll deal a D12. Very nice, very potent. It is on the Wisdom saving throw, and it is necrotic damage, so it might not hit every target. But it is very good damage for clerics who don't have access to Firebolt. Alternatively, if you want to get a different damage type, less damage at a D8, which is Frost, a Ray of Frost, but it has an amazing effect of just simply slowing down the enemy by 10 feet. Normally, this is enough to completely halt the advance of an enemy, and it can save your behind as a frail spellcaster. And lastly, for radiant damage, is Sacred Flame, also belonging to the cleric. I think it's only the cleric at the moment, maybe some paladins. No, I'm misremembering. It is a dexterity saving throw, but it is a D8 of radiant damage. And radiant is a nice premium spell damage to come by. As for utility, guidance, a little bit of a nerf. So it used to be a D4 to any ability check you make. Now you have to choose one ability check in particular. I think that actually knocks it down a peg because you have to be specific about what bonus you're giving yourself or your allies. But it is a phenomenal cantrip that you should take with any support build. Clerics, druids, bards, and anyone else who can get their grubby little hands on it. Mage Hand, great at grabbing. Sorry, I need to take a drink. Great at grabbing things from a distance. Even more so if you are the arcane trickster, a lot more to do with that. But it is a good utility spell. And this one, not in the damage category because the Vicious Mockery is better as a support spell, giving an enemy disadvantage if they fail their Wisdom saving throw, and the extra damage die got increased to a d6 for Psychic. And lastly, Light. If you are unable to see in the darkness and don't have dark vision, Light is a great source of vision, and a powerful source too. I think it goes 20 feet bright, and then another 20 after that dim. So you have a good vision there for combat. Okay, so that needs to be so. And then for roleplay, prestidigitation, so many uses, amazing. Message, very strong at communicating in secret with your allies without the enemy knowing. So you can transmit your thoughts into their head. And finally, minor illusion, if you're great at coming up with something interesting. And I've seen cases where this minor illusion can be used in combat. Just fun. But I think these 3 spells reign supreme for roleplay. So once you've covered your damage, you've covered your support, picking up one of these 3 is like a must. So, the actual top 8. This is pretty much everything that's kind of flown under the radar. Well, okay, True Strike has not flown under the radar, but the other under the radar that I think are really valuable, that being Poison Spray, True Strike, Shillelagh, Starry Wisps, Sorcerous Burst, and then for the support and utility, just Blade Ward. And then for the roleplay, Elementalism and Thaumaturgy. Elementalism's kind of a weak, but I don't think it's that bad compared to the other roleplay. Well, Thaumaturgy is now amazing. Okay, so first off, Blade Ward. So, as an action, you can cast Blade Ward on yourself. What this will do, it is concentration for a minute. What this will do, it will subtract a d4 from all attack rolls that hit you. This is effectively plus d4 to the AC, so about 2.5 AC. That's equivalent to Shield of Faith, which is a leveled spell. The only difference is that it is a bonus action and it can be applied to other characters. This is really good, especially for a cantrip. I was talking to my friends about it being also comparable to Bane, which you can apply on enemies. So there's also that, where it does subtracting d4, and that lasts on multiple targets. But if you're being a melee fighter, so I forgot to mention this, since it's part of the Wizard's spellbook, the Arcane Trickster, as well as the Eldritch Knight, can gain access to the spell. So for Warlocks, you also might be a frontline Warlock. You also might be a somewhat Midgard Bard, depending on what subclass you choose. Sorry. So overall, I feel like it's great. It's a nice, cheap defensive option, and you might even be able to pull it off before combat starts. In some cases, fantastic spell. B tier because it is more based around being in melee combat, or at least being exposed. So Elementalism. This is about a B tier on the roleplay cantrip side. Not too important, but not one you might want to miss depending on how you want to flavor, especially for druids and the 4 elements monk. No, the elemental monk. I forgot what the subclass is renamed to. Anyways, I need to check if I'm recording. Hold on. I am recording. Sorry. As an action, you can do multiple things we'll get into. A quick little free spells. So the first one is Beacon Air. You create a breeze strong enough to ripple through clothings, stir dust around, rustle leaves, and close and open and shut doors. That one's more important. So you got a ranged closed door ability. 30 feet. But not if they're locked. Now, second Earth, you create a a thin shroud of dust or sand that covers the surface, 5-foot square, and you cause a single word to appear in your own writing in a patch of dirt. So this is where this silently cast messages to allies and players within 30 feet. That's not as important, but again, it's on top of being able to close doors at a range. Back on a fire, you create a thin cloud of harmless embers that colored scent smoke in a 5-foot cube. You create these scents and embers that can light candles, torches, or lamps in an area. This isn't too important. Being able to light lamps for torches, you might already have a tinderbox, but it's there in case you don't have it or something gets wet. But the most important, like for me, it's a beacon of water. You create a spray of cool mist and light dampers creature, damps creature and objects in a 5-foot cube. Alternatively, you can create 1 cup of clean water. So for campaigns that are being an adventurous parties going out, you can create fresh water. Now, it does only last for a minute as it evaporates, but I'm pretty sure if you consume something, then that no longer counts as evaporating. So you cast it, you can drink clean water, and you can beat out the survivaling style of adventure. This and Goodberry, all set for the day. And then finally, sculpt elements. This is just, you can cause a dirt, sand, fire, smoke, mist, or water that can fit in a 1-foot cube and assume through shape. This is just a little roleplay feature. I think the clean water on top of the closing doors is going to be why you would take this spell, especially over the other options. You probably wouldn't take this for Wizard or Sorcerer, but definitely I think for Druid. Alright, moving on to Poison Spray. This one got a buff since 2014, and a great one. So it is still in action. Its range, it got increased from 10 to 30 feet. So now it's very viable in actual ranged combat. It can't do the 60 plus feet that most spells can, but it does actually have a proper range now. Especially noting this one for, I should actually put for druids here. The reason why I mentioned druids is because druids don't have a lot of good damage options. And we're going to find this out as we go through the bad spells on this list. It's a really good damage option for druids. What does it do? Spray toxic mist on creatures within range, 30 feet, making a ranged spell attack. It used to be a Constitution saving throw. It is no longer that. Amazing against a target. On a hit, the target takes 1d12 poison damage. That is the only bad, I should have mentioned this, the only bad part about the spell is that d12, fantastic, and it scales with regular cantrip scaling, levels 5, 11, and 17. The problem is it's poison damage, and poison is the most resistant damage type. Sorry, actually got that wrong. It is the most immune damage type. About a quarter of the monsters in the whole game are immune to poison straight up. So it's a very risky damage type. But now it's actually viable for druids ranged combat. Very nice. Up next we have Shillelagh. This is also given a buff. So it is a bonus action to cast, and you can only use it with a club or quarterstaff. It has a range of touch. It lasts for 1 minute. It is not concentration. And it is only for druids and anyone who takes the druid initiate feat. That part is important. So, club or quarterstaff you're holding is imbued with the power of nature. For the duration, you can use your spellcasting ability instead of strength to make attack rolls and damage rolls. The weapon. And the weapon's damage die now becomes a d8. It can also deal force damage, which is a premium price tag. For spell damage, opposed to the weapon's normal damage. So the only thing that I have to mention is that the spell ends early if you let go of the weapon. So if you stow it or if it leaves your hand, it is no longer in effect, unfortunately. So this means the switching out multi-attack damage builds with a single hand is unfortunately not going to stack up well with Shillelagh builds. But if you're just whacking with like a sword and board, which is like really what's gonna apply to for both the druids or the martial classes that you want to give this to with the magic and shit, that's when it's gonna get really good. So speaking of those martial classes, at level 5, the die increases to a D10. This is comparable now to the lance, with its single one-handed damage type. The lance, you have to be mounted for this to be the case. This one you do not have to be, and that increases further to D12 at level 11. When it stays at the same damage at level 17, when it changes from a D12 to 2 D6s to make it more consistent. But the DPS doesn't really increase in there, so it's really that sweet spot at level 5 and 11 that it's really putting in work, especially if you have multiple attack actions like the fighter. A sword and board fighter can be a sword and quarterstaff fighter, as they bonk people with a D12 damage. Yes, the spell, I'm still gonna put it high in A tier. I think it's a nice, now consistent damage that the druid has access to. Okay, it's time for the thumbnail of the video. This is the new spell Sorcerous burst for Surprise Sorcerers. It is an action to cast. It has a range of 120 feet. Somatic, instantaneous evocation. Classic, your shoot spell. So you cast a Sorcerer's energy at a target or an object in range. Make a ranged spell attack roll against that target. On a hit, the target takes 1d6 damage with a type that you choose. This is amazing that you have acid, cold, fire, lightning, poison, psychic, or thunder. All choose from. I'm not sure if there's a single monster in the game that is resistant to all 7 types of those damage. So you flat out have control, and you can even attack onto their vulnerabilities that most monsters have to these damage types. Amazing damage types to be dealt here. So the bonus for this, which is why it's at a D8 instead of a standard D10, is because on an 8, on the original D8s that you go to damage dice, if you roll an 8, you get to add an additional D8 per D8 you rolled, per 8 you rolled on the additional damage. So when you cast spell, the maximum D8s you can is equivalent to your spellcasting modifier. Normally your modifier is going to be higher than the amount of D8s you can reroll, so it's fine. So again, level 1 it's a D8, level 5 2d8, 3d8, 4d8. Standard cantrip leveling. So how does it compare to Firebolt? Well, at level 1 there is a 1 in 8% chance of rolling a D8 and then gaining extra damage based on rolling another die. So what I'm doing here is I'm taking 8 divided by the chance of rolling 8 every single time. And with more dice, there's higher chances of rolling more 8s. So on the first chance, it's a 1 in 8 chance of rolling an 8, so you get a 1 extra damage die. At level 1 here, it is comparable to Firebolt damage. You get an average damage of 5.5. If you roll it 100 times, it'll be the exact same damage. Now, at level 5, you get a 23% chance of rolling an 8. And then, you can also get a 2.9% chance of rolling a second 8, leaving you with an overall extra damage of 2.104. aka slightly higher damage than you might get with Firebolt. You're dealing slightly more damage than Firebolt, and you also have all these damage types to choose from, so it's way better. And the same thing happens at level 11. You can see the numbers here. Slightly higher. Just a little bit, but again, you have all these damage types to choose from. The only place it loses out is finally at level 17, when it is slightly lower. But I think it's worth it to have all these damage chips. It is an amazing cantrip, and it's sorcerers only. This is like a reason to pick sorcerer. And if you really think this mechanic is fun, you can try picking up a Chromatic Orb, a level 1 spell, which does this, but even more crazier with the exploding dice. I love the design of this spell. I'm putting it at A. I don't think it's broken because again, it compares itself to Firebolt. The only thing is that Firebolt is, I guess, more consistent, and when it will deal more damage. But it might not always be the case where you need, because you might need burst, and that's where Sorcerer's Burst comes in. A. All right, moving on. Starry Wisps. I put this one high not because of its damage or effect. It's because it's for bards and druids. So Starry Wisp is it's a new spell. It's 1 action. It is 60 feet. It's pretty nice. I no need to go higher than that range. Real somatic, instantaneous, evocation, bards and druids. Why is it important for it to be on bards and druids? Well, bards and druids don't have a lot of good damaging cantrips. The druids, as we saw, poison spray was its best option for damage in the past, and now it's an actual somewhat viable option. But if you want a more consistent option, Starry Wisps is your guy. And for bards, you literally, this is the most damage you can get from a cantrip. So that's why it's up here. So you launch a mote of light at one enemy or object, make a ranged spell attack against that target. On a hit, the target takes a D8 radiant damage, very important. And until the end of your next turn, it emits dim light in a 10-foot radius and can't benefit from the invisible condition. This is either turning invisible or hiding. Very good. Nice little extra support here. But it's mostly about the damage that druids didn't have a consistent way to deal a d8 damage, and neither did bards. Okay, wait, druid did, but we'll get into that when we go to the worst spells. Worst cantrips, sorry. Yes, this is the best damage you're gonna get for a bard, and the most consistent damage you're gonna get from a druid. Thaumaturgy. I love this spell. There's only one aspect of the spell I like, but it's such a fun aspect. I think this is a B tier spell. It's not very creative. Well, it's supposed to be creative, but like what you're gonna be using it for, it's just gonna be very expansive as a roleplay spell. So it is a cast time of 1 action. It is 30 feet range. It has a verbal component, and it lasts for 1 minute. It is only provided for clerics. So you manifest a minor wonder in range. You create one of the following effects below. Within 1 minute, I skip a leopard. Okay, so you can alter your eyes. This can just change the appearance of your eyes for 1 minute. I don't know what to do with that one. Booming voice, the one we're all here for. You boom a voice up to 3 times louder as normal for 1 minute. For the duration, you have advantage on charisma intimidation checks. Straight up advantage. Normally, you pay a premium to roll advantage on checks. This one gives it to you for free. Amazing. And clerics, some clerics want to invest in charisma. They get the saving throw for it. So instead of being a pacifist cleric, you can be an angry cleric and just yell at your enemies to convince them to stand down otherwise. Fireplay, you cause flickering flames bright or dim flames color for 1 minute. Invisible hands, you can shut or unlock doors with the fly open shuts. Same thing as the winds from earlier. It's a nice add-on. And then phantom sound, you create instantaneous sound, originates from a point you choose, or a rumbling thunder, a cry of a raven. So it's actually good for stealth missions when you want to subvert the enemy's attention away from you. And then tremors, you can cause harmless tremors from the ground for 1 minute. So I think Thaumaturgy is a great spell. I actually should maybe have rated it higher because it's the only, well, no, because clerics still have the guidance, so you'll take that over Thaumaturgy. But Thaumaturgy is a nice second. All right, the new True Strike. I'm only going to keep it a B tier. For now, it might be broken. It might be S. I don't think all You don't always want it, but when the builds that do, they really want it. So, what the old True Strike did is just give you advantage on your next attack roll. You have to keep concentration on it, and it only lasted for 1 round. It was horrendous. Literally attacking twice is far better than doing that. So with the new True Strike, it is an action. It is on yourself. The component here, which is very important for especially the martial build, is just your weapon. So you don't have to bring out your arcane focus. You can use your weapon as the material component for a magic. So you can have full hands for the spell. It's instantaneous and it's still in the divination. Actually, that kind of makes sense. It is great for bards and wizards as well. Most importantly, it'll be good for the Arcane Trickster and Eldritch Knight. Because Arcane Trickster only has 1 attack, and it can work with the finesse weapons. And the Eldritch Knight gets the ability to have multiple attack actions and take a cantrip as part of those attack actions. So it'll just gain its scaling bonus damage on it, as well as dealing radiant damage. So, for Guiding Flash of Magical Insight, you make 1 attack with your weapon. You spend the spellcasting of the spell. That's the material component. The attack also uses your spellcasting ability for the attack's damage instead of strength or dexterity. If the attack deals damage, it can be radiant as well, or the weapon's normal damage type. Choice. And at levels 5, it scales to an extra d6, and then 11 and 17. So there's 1 attack scales damage for people who don't have extra attack. The only reason why I didn't put this highly more on the Warlock, because they have the ability to already do the using your spellcasting ability with the Pact of the Blade, and have extra attack. So I think that's a far better way of doing a melee focused Warlock. But for the rest of them, this is such a damage spike. For the Bard, for melee bards, especially with the swords bard, the College of Valor, who can also cast a cantrip with their extra attack. The Eldritch Knight, the same, and the Arcane Trickster, who just only has 1 attack, and this is the attack to make. Oops, I went back a little bit. The only downside for these 2 more martial focus classes is that it will use the intelligence. But I feel like it's worth it. It's worth sacrificing, especially with Arcane Trickster, where you can gain advantage the other abilities, and then you can make the attack with advantage, so you're more likely to hit. And the same thing with Eldritch Knight is where you could use Mastery like Topple, and then you can go for the True Strike, where you have advantage, and make it a lot easier to hit. Or you can go for the intelligence build on both of these and just maximize that instead, trying to really take advantage of this bonus damage here. By the way, it's not broken because I think you have to spec into it, but it's really strong. Okay, ignore this beat here. I think I'm going to change it to A. Welcome to the disappointment of the century. So, a couple of these cantrips needed buffs. 1 got a buff, the others, they did not, and in fact, some of these got nerfed, such as Chill Touch and Shocking Grasp, for honestly no reason. There's a reason for Shocking Grasp, but how the mighty have fallen. So you have Chill Touch, Produce Flame, Shocking Grasp, Thunderclap, Word of Radiance. These 2 are together because they do the exact same thing. It's right at the end there. Resistance, Friends, Dancing Lights, and Druidcraft. Okay, Chill Touch. Everyone complained, but it's necrotic damage, and it wasn't a touch spell. And Wizard of the Coast is like, alright, you get what you want. And they have changed it from, it's 1 action. Now it is now touch, and has lost its 120-foot range to worse. verbal somatic, instantaneous necromancy, sorcerer, warlock, wizard, channel, engrave, make a melee spell attack against a target within range. On a hit, the target takes 1d10 necrotic damage. That is a bonus from last time. It used to do a d8. And it can't regenerate hit points until the end of its turn. It also lost if you hit an undead target. It also has disadvantage on its next attack roll against you. Now, most low-level undead targets, which is when you would be using this spell, don't have immunity to necrotic damage or resistance. This spell was actually good at fighting undead enemies. It still is good at fighting enemies with regen, but you have to get close. Losing that 120-foot range and this bonus little effect here is not worth the extra d10 damage. There are better melee options. We went over Tree Strike. We went over Shillelagh. It's just not good. It's a C tier spell, like maybe if stars align, but it was a mediocre spell, and now it's swimming in the waters of its former self. All right, Dancing Lights F tier. So it takes an action to cast, and then a bonus action to move afterwards. It is 120 feet, verbal somatic, material, concentration for 1 minute. Concentration, and then for 1 minute. Light is not a concentration spell. Lasts for an hour. It is from the illusion spell list, and artificer, bards, sorcerers, and wizards can use it. So you create up to 4 torches. They can see within range that make them appear as torches, lanterns, or glowing orbs that hover over for the duration. Alternatively, you can combine the 4 lights to one glowing medium form that is vaguely humanoid. Whichever form it takes, each light sheds dim light only dim light, and 10 feet at radius. As a bonus action, move the lights 60 feet to any space, as long as all the lights are within 20 feet of one another. The lights vanish after the succeeds of the spell's range. So don't even go that far. So, what you can do with the light is you can cast it on an item and just chuck it. You can do so much better with a simple light spell. It doesn't ruin your concentration if you're trying to hold something between battles. It sheds bright light and not dim light like this. And frankly, like, there's no point in this spell the way it is. I could see a universe where the spell could be fine and a competitor to light, but it's too short on its timing. It costs concentration when it really shouldn't. There's no reason to take this over light, other than you might not have it, but I think all of these classes have light. Okay, Druidcraft. I think Elementalism is now just a better version of this. One action, 30-foot range, verbal somatic components instantaneously, only for the druids. This is the only thing it has above Elementalism, and that is the weather sensor. You create a tiny harmless sensory effect that predicts the weather that you will be located at for the next 24 hours. This one you can maybe use to protect, like you can ask the DM like, hey, is there a storm coming along? And you can really emphasize a storm coming along, and the DM may go, yeah, okay, fine, there's a storm coming along. And then in the heart of combat, when there's a storm going along, then you cast Call Lightning, and boom, you get a bonus effect. But that's the most I can see out of this cantrip coming to life. That's a very forced scenario. So the effect might manifest as a golden orb or clear sky, falling rain, snowflakes for snow, and so on. This effect persists for only 1 round. That's fine. You don't really need to see it. Boom, you can instantly make bloom. You can instantly make flowers bloom, seeds open, and leaves, buds bloom. Great, fantastic. A sensory effect, you can create a harmless sensory effect such as falling leaves, spectral dancing of fairies, gentle breeze, sounds of animals, or faint odors of a skunk. This effect must fit in a 5-foot cube. Whatever. Fireplay, light or snuff out a candle or torch or campfire. That's cool, but elementalism do the same thing. I think elementalism is just a better cantrip. Yeah. There's not much to say there. Alright, friends. Did get a buff. This did get a buff. It also got a nerf. I think it's slightly better than it was before. So as an action, you have a range of 10 feet, schematic components, concentration for 1 minute, and it's enchantment for bards, sorcerers, wizards, warlocks, and wizards. So you magically emanate a sense of friendship towards one creature you can see within range. The target must succeed on a wisdom saving throw. That is not in the old version, so now it does have a wisdom saving throw. Or have the charmed condition for the duration. It's now more expansive. The target succeeds automatically if it isn't a humanoid, or if you're currently fighting it, or if you have casted the spell on it within 24 hours. The spell ends early if the target takes damage, or if you make an attack roll dealing damage, or forcing anyone to make a saving throw. Or force anyone to make a saving throw. When the spell ends, the target knows it was charmed by you. It used to say it was immediately hostile towards you. It no longer says that. So that's the one good thing that came out of this. But 1 minute. Unlike Charm Person, which lasts an hour, and that you can keep the guise of being friends long enough to where when you leave the area, they don't know where you are. It's been an hour. A minute, they're gonna find you. Unless you specifically disguise as someone else before talking to them, I don't... Like, it's supposed to be a weaker version of Charm Person, but my goodness, is it a weaker version of Charm Person. This spell used to be called Enemies by the community because it did for the hostile tag. It no longer has that, but now it's not consistent. Now you gotta make sure that wisdom saving throw sticks, or else they're gonna find out, because it's somatic and material, so they know you've casted a spell on them with their hand gestures, unless you do it behind your back real quick. But as a DM, I think people know when they were making the saving throw. I just think this is not good again. All right, reduce flames. So it has both a casting time of a bonus action and an action. And that's where the problem lies. It takes your whole turn except for movement to even cast the cantrip. So it has a range of self and 60 feet. It's also not a very high feat for what it's about to do. It is a verbal components, unless you want to keep it around. It only lasts for 10 minutes, and it's only for the druid. So a flicker flame appears in your hand and remains for the duration. While the flame emits no heat and it ignites nothing, it can shed bright light at a 12-foot radius and dim light for that 12 feet. So same as the light cantrip. That's pretty good. It's pretty good. The spell ends if you cast it again, or until you make a magic action to hurl the fire at a creature or an object in 60 feet of you. So that's the part where it sucks, is that it takes both a bonus action and an action to manifest and then throw. I wish there was an option where it just said if you want to manifest it right away, it could just be an action. That would have been fine. It is fire damage, obviously, and it only deals d6. D8. Sorry, D8. So its bonus effect is better outside of combat, which is a weaker version of lights, and then its inside of combat is a weaker version of firebolts. And it's just two things that just don't have to go together. And inside of combat also costs both a bonus action and an action unless you prep it first. I guess you can do that, but that's only going to last the first round. After that, regular cantrip scaling is nice, but it's trying to be a jack of two and a master of neither, to the point where you would just take both of those spells independently of one another. There's no reason to touch this. But it was the best damage dealing range spell option for the druid. Now that Starry Wisp's around, it's just there's no. Maybe it was a B tier based off circumstances. There's no reason to take it now. And now we make it to the end of our. No, it's not the end of the list. Sorry, we make it to resistance. It is an action to cast. It is a touch, so you can apply on enemies. It is concentration for 1 minute. And it just belongs to the Artificer. Spell list. You touch a willing creature and choose a damage type: acid, bludgeoning, cold, fire, lightning, piercing, poison, resistance, slashing, or thunder. When a creature takes damage of the chosen type before a spell ends, the creature reduces the total damage taken by a d4. The creature can't benefit from the spell only once per turn. So, again, it's a d4, so it's about 2.5 damage, but it's only once per turn. It doesn't even scale how many times per turn with levels. And it's concentration, so you already have had to been hit to reduce the damage. You have to make a Constitution saving throw every single time if you cast it on yourself. If you cast it on an ally, I guess that's fine, but then you're not concentrating on something more important. And lastly, it's only going to be 2.5 damage per turn. Maybe you can get lucky and all the bad guys do the same damage, but it's not doing much. It's not like avoiding damage altogether like the Blade Ward does, where it might give you that extra 10% or I guess 12% in Blade Ward's case on average chance of not getting hit, and sometimes that's it. Sometimes that's enough. Versus this one, which just reduces the already existing damage. Just get Blade Ward. Just get Blade Ward. Oh, I'm so upset about this one. Okay, I get why certain things. So, Shocking Grasps, it's gone up again to detour. So, it is one action. It is touch, verbal, somatic components, instantaneous, evocation for artificers, sorcerers, and wizards. Lightning springs forth from you to a creature that you touch. Make a melee spell attack against it. On a hit, the target takes a d8 of lightning damage, and it can't make opportunity attacks. This is a nerf for it can't take reactions, period. This applied to spells and other such effects. That was fantastic. The only reason why they nerfed it is because they seem to be changing the monster manual the term reaction and replacing it for legendary actions for those types of boss monsters. But this also gets rid of reaction spells from being not triggered by Shocking Grasp, and that really sucks. In addition, the other line of advantage on attack rolls against target wearing metal armor is gone. Why? That was cool. It was a very good consistent damage dealer to armored targets who might have higher AC. And it wasn't doing a lot of damage, especially for a melee range spell, but it had two unique, very good scenarios, and now they're gone. So it's worthless. There's no reason. Take Chill Touch over Shocking Grasps. I'm gonna be honest. I'm just mad. Well, let's move on. All right, Thunderclap and Word Radiance. I don't know why those two are probably different text style. Anyways, they're pretty much the same thing. So Thunderclap is an action. Bad part about it is only a 5-foot emanation, so it's when you're surrounded. It is a somatic component. It is instantaneous and evocation. It comes from the Artificer, Bard, and Druid, Sorcerer, Warlock, and Wizard Spellist. This is melee range, and we've already seen better spells from melee range. The only difference is this one can hit more than one target. But if you are a spellcaster and you've been surrounded, you are not doing your job correctly. Going over to Word Radiance, it is the same thing. It is verbal material component, which I guess the material matters a little bit, but you're a cleric only, so It's part of your shield. I think no, it's just shield. But same with the stats. Each creature in a 5-foot emanation originating from you must succeed on a Constitution saving throw or take a D6 of thunder damage. Spells thunderous sound can be heard from 10 feet away. As for word radiance, it is the exact same thing, except it is radiant damage. It doesn't have that. It doesn't have that sound debuff where people can hear you. They both scale the same way, with more thunder die being added, more d6s, and same thing with more radiant d6s being added. These are the exact same spells for the most part. And they both, you just don't want to be surrounded as a spellcaster, and you shouldn't try and go for these two. They're not the worst to get people shaken off of you if you were surrounded by a horde attack, but I feel like you have better options that you can do with your actual leveled spells to get rid of them before they even come close. So that's it. That's the end. So everyone enjoyed. Those are my top 8 sneaky picks. Sneaky pickles. I should review my writing. Sneaky picks of cantrips. And the bottom 8 to avoid. If you like the video, hit the like button and subscribe. If you dislike the video, you can have at it. And if you have any thoughts, put them in the comments below. You can also check out my other videos on how the classes line up with one another in their own tier list, or how to play or DM for Rogue. Have a good one, everybody.